Where Wolves Don't Die is the debut novel from Anton Treuer, released last month. Treuer is a professor of Ojibwe at Bemidji State University. He's written several nonfiction books exploring, celebrating, and preserving the Ojibwe language and culture. We're lucky enough to have the author of Where Wolves Don't Die with us tonight, Anton Treuer. Professor, it is great seeing you. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
You've written a ton of books, but this is your first stab at a YA novel for kids, for young kids, young adults. Why? What possessed you to do that?
Oh, all kinds of things. You know, over the past few years, both of my parents have passed away. We have 9 children. We got 6 out the door, 3 to go. I am living in kidland all the time in my personal life, but my professional life too. I think we have always related to the world through story. And, you know, everything you wanted to know about Indians but were afraid to ask. A previous book, we did a young adult adaptation of that, and I've just been working with young people a lot. So I wanted to try my hand at fiction. And, you know, some people don't make the transition very well. So I figured the best thing to do would be to test drive everything with my own children. So I read it out loud to them in chapters, and I knew that if they were walking away or jumping into their phones, that, you know, that was the best barometer, and they'd be the toughest judges.
Right.
But they were into it, and, you know, flipping pages with me, and it was pretty exciting.
That's cool.
You called this a human story set in an indigenous context.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Native Lit is not just for Native people and not just about Native themes. It's about the human experience. So the book's a story of a 15-year-old Native kid. It starts in Northeast Minneapolis. He's dealing with a loss prior to the start of the book and immediately finds himself embroiled in a major drama. He's kind of looking for clues to a murder and finding himself in the process. So it's both a thriller and a kind of tender coming-of-age story.
I'm wondering, you know, writers tend to write from experience. So Ezra, I'm wondering if how much of Ezra's life mirrors your own journey as a young person.
Well, you know, as this is a work of fiction, so
Sure.
you know, it's constructed, but, you know, I've found myself often frustrated with Native Lit. Up until a few decades ago, most of it was authored by non-Native people who hadn't even talked to one of us. It was the imagined Native. In more recent years, we've had a lot more wonderful Native-authored Native Lit, but even most of the work that's out there are stories of tragedy and trauma, characters who lament the culture they never had. And I speak Ojibwe, and I take my kids hunting all the time, and we have a living, beautiful, vibrant culture, and I wanted to give people a window into that, but to show this human experience that still has a 15-year-old kid dealing with the struggle, with things, with, you know, coming of age. It's full of tension, but I think it shows something very different.
The bullying is an interest, because that seems to come up with the internet and so forth, a lot of bullying online and so forth. That was interesting that you played that part of it up.
Sure. I mean, first of all, who in their childhood experience has never had that? You know, so it's a window into, you know, the tensions that all of us as humans navigate, and the desire that I think all of us have to both find my own way, to break from our parents and everyone and everything. I had the idea that a lot of high schoolers have, that I'd finish school and go somewhere else and never come back, and finish college with the thought that I want to go home and never leave. You know, so we have this tension between wanting to belong and be accepted and at the same time, you know, be independent. So of course, you know, Ezra's dealing with all of that. My own kids, you know, I have teenagers who've been through a lot of these things, so there are composites of experiences perhaps, but certainly it's not the story of any one of them.
By the way, thank you for all your work in the language, you know, supporting the language. You have a great, if folks haven't seen it, by the way, you really got to go ahead and find Dr. Treuer on social media with the Ojibwe word of the day, which is pretty cool. How'd you come up with that?
Oh, you know, I'm not even the first one to do an Ojibwe word of the day, but it's been really a pleasure to do this with my daughter. There's a lot happening in the Ojibwe language revitalization universe, probably a much bigger conversation. We've got an Ojibwe language dub of Star Wars out. We've got, you know, Rosetta Stone for Ojibwe. There's lots of work going on, and finally marshaling resources for these efforts with a lot of the immersion schools.
Where the wolves don't die. Perfect for holiday gift giving. Thanks, Professor.
Thanks so
It's
much
good
for
to see
having
you.
me.
You bet.
Thank
Great
you.
to be on.
Thank you.